Welcome, creative thinking listeners, to another deep dive here on the show. It's really fantastic to have you with us again.
Great to be diving in.
Absolutely. Today, we're building on some really fascinating ground we've covered in previous sessions.
Right.
You'll remember those deep dives we did on embracing imperfection and also pushing creative boundaries.
Yes, those were foundational, weren't they?
Yeah.
Really got into the weeds of where creativity sparks.
Exactly. Conversations that really made us think, challenged our assumptions about where truly novel ideas actually come from.
The non-obvious places.
Precisely. And speaking of novelty, get ready, because today we're not just talking theory. Not at all. We're unveiling an exciting new concept, sort of a hands-on application of so many of those principles we've already discussed.
It's going to get into practice.
Exactly. We're diving deep into Imaginify, a community experiment building a collective creative vision.
Imaginify. I like the sound of that.
Me too. And our mission for this deep dive really is to unpack exactly how this experiment harnesses the incredible power, the latent power of community imagination to forge a genuinely shared vision.
So moving from individual sparks to a collective flame.
You got it. It's a direct, tangible connection to that whole Redefine Imaginify framework we've explored before, taking those maybe somewhat abstract ideas and showing how they can have real-world impact.
Drowning the philosophy.
Yeah, and I honestly believe we're in for some profound insights today, maybe even a few surprising realizations along the way.
I think so too. And just for anyone maybe tuning in for the first time, or as a quick refresher for everyone, that Redefine Imaginify framework we mentioned, it's really our guiding philosophy here.
Right, the big picture.
Exactly. It basically asserts that true, profound novelty, the really game-changing stuff, doesn't usually emerge from perfectly controlled, sterile, ideal conditions.
Like a perfectly quiet lab or studio, necessarily.
Right. Not always. Instead, it often comes from, the unexpected disruption of your routine, that feeling of being slightly off balance, and also from the quiet unmooring of the mind.
Unmooring. I like that word, like letting go of the anchor.
Precisely. Letting go of what you think you know, what you expect the outcome to be. And what's really fascinating, I think, is how this Imaginify experiment directly embodies that foundational premise. It's designed for it.
So it's not just hoping for disruption, it's kind of engineering it. In a good way.
In a way, yes. It's structured for it. And crucially, this isn't just about fostering individual breakthroughs, though, those are great and certainly welcome.
Of course.
But it's specifically designed to achieve collective breakthroughs, bringing together all these diverse perspectives, different ways of thinking, to create something genuinely new and, importantly, shared.
That shared aspect feels really key here.
It is. And the Imaginify experiment has 3 core objectives that really illustrate this beautifully. They're interconnected, and they move beyond, let's say, traditional approaches to innovation or brainstorming.
Okay, let's hear them.
So first, it aims to truly foster creativity. And I mean, really foster it. This goes way beyond your typical corporate brainstorming session, the one with the sticky notes that often just falls flat.
Oh, I know the ones. Everyone's trying to come up with the right answer.
Exactly. Instead, this is about actively encouraging genuinely open-minded thinking, pushing participants past their first easy, comfortable ideas into, unrestrained, sometimes even wild idea generation.
So quantity over initial quality, almost. Let it all out.
Sort of. It's more about exploring possibility without immediate judgment. Think less about finding the right answer immediately, and much more about exploring every possible, impossible, even seemingly absurd avenue first.
Getting comfortable with the uncomfortable ideas.
Precisely. This actively, deliberately nudges minds out of their usual, comfortable, well-worn tracks. That's objective 1.
Okay. Fostering creativity by encouraging exploration. What's number 2?
Second, it seeks to build community. And again, this isn't just, casual networking or swapping business cards over coffee.
Right, not just surface level.
No, it's achieved by intentionally connecting individuals through deeply collaborative projects and discussions. It's about actually doing things together, grappling with ideas together.
Shared experience.
Exactly. It's about forming what we sometimes call a creative ecosystem. Think of it like a vibrant, interdependent network where ideas can freely flow, bump into each other, evolve, cross-pollinate.
Like a coral reef of ideas.
I like that. Coral reef of ideas, yes, leading to these emergent insights that wouldn't happen in isolation. This is where the magic of collective synthesis truly begins, when those individual sparks meet and ignite something bigger.
Okay, fostering creativity, building community, and the third objective.
Third, and perhaps the most exciting part, is that it strives to develop a collective vision.
The ultimate output.
Yes. And this isn't just like a collection of individual thoughts pinned to a board or a loosely connected mood board. It's really about producing a truly shared artistic or conceptual output.
Something tangible.
Tangible, yes. A concrete reflection of the community's combined imagination. A unified creative narrative or concept that, honestly, no single person could have conceived alone. It's bigger than the sum of its parts.
Wow. Okay, those three objectives together, foster creativity, build community, develop a collective vision, that sounds incredibly holistic.
It is, yeah. And this whole approach, it really stands in stark contrast to the conventional, often romanticized idea that creativity needs these perfectly curated, quiet, pristine environments. The image of the lone genius locked away in their secluded studio.
Right, the myth of the isolated creator.
Exactly. Instead, Imaginify actually champions disruption. It celebrates those in-between moments, the transitions, the pauses, the coffee breaks, the hallways chats, even those seemingly unproductive spaces. It sees them as fertile ground for innovation.
So the moments we usually discount are actually valuable.
Hugely valuable. We're talking about the subconscious connections your brain makes while you're grabbing a coffee, or that unexpected insight sparked by a totally tangential comment someone makes during a break. These aren't distractions. They're potential catalysts.
That reframes things significantly.
It does. This initiative fundamentally redefines where creativity and novel ideas truly originate. It often highlights aspects that might conventionally be perceived as, imperfect, uncomfortable, or decidedly non-traditional.
Embracing the messiness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's often in those moments of slight discomfort or that deviation from the norm that our minds are truly unmoored, freed up to make those unexpected nonlinear connections.
That's a powerful philosophy, really challenging our standard notions of where good ideas come from and what kind of environment they need. So if the goal is to leverage this constructive disruption and this collective unmooring, how does this actually work in practice? How does this incredible collective journey unfold in a way that's, structured but still flexible? Because it sounds like it could be wonderfully chaotic.
It could be, yes.
But there's clearly an intentional design here, right? What are the mechanisms? How do you guide that disruption towards a productive, maybe even unified outcome without stifling it?
That's a critical point you raised.
Yeah.
Because while Imaginify absolutely embraces disruption, it's definitely not chaos for chaos's sake.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be productive.
Right, need some guardrails.
Exactly. The experiment follows a structured, yet importantly highly flexible agenda. It's meticulously designed, phase by phase, to maximize that collaborative output. It's not about stifling individual brilliance at all, quite the opposite. It's about channeling it, amplifying it, and shaping it into something far greater than any single person could achieve on their own.
Okay, so there's a map.
There's a map. We're talking about a 5-phase journey, and I think it's worth briefly outlining them now, just to give everyone a sense of the flow, and then we can promise to dive deep into each one, give you that real roadmap for how it unfolds, from the very first spark to a fully realized collective vision.
Perfect. Let's get the overview.
Okay, so first, naturally, we have the welcome and introduction phase, setting the stage. Then we move into an exploration phase, digging into meaning. That's followed by a very hands-on collaboration workshop. Then, the culmination is a final presentation. And finally, critically, a wrap-up and next steps phase.
Welcome, exploration, collaboration, presentation, wrap-up.
Got it. Each phase builds logically on the last, creating this, hopefully, seamless flow from those initial individual sparks to that collective fire we talked about.
All right, let's get into it then, phase by phase. This sounds fascinating. Okay, let's unpack this journey, starting right at the beginning with phase 1. Welcome and introduction, breaking the ice for breakthroughs. This opening phase, it sounds like it's really important for setting the entire tone right, getting things started on the right foot.
Absolutely crucial. First impressions matter, even in creative collaboration.
So it kicks off, as you mentioned, with a carefully crafted icebreaker activity. Share a creative idea or vision. Now, some people might hear icebreaker and groan inwardly.
Yes, the dreaded icebreaker.
Right. But the intention here sounds profound. It immediately sets that tone of openness and engagement you talked about. It seems to bypass the usual, maybe more polite, sometimes shallow introductions.
Exactly. Instead of just stating your name and your role, which can reinforce existing hierarchies or silos.
Yeah, putting people in boxes right away.
Precisely. Instead, you're asked to introduce a piece of your creative self, however nascent or grand that idea might be. It could be tiny, it could be huge, doesn't matter.
That immediate sharing, that vulnerability almost, seems crucial. It breaks down those initial barriers, right? Those social walls, but also the creative ones, the walls we put up around our own ideas sometimes, fearing judgment.
Spot on. And it encourages immediate active participation. There's no waiting around, no easing in gradually. You're basically in the game from moment one. You're asked to make a creative contribution right away.
And psychologically, what does that do? Think about the types of ideas or visions that might emerge in that first round. They could be absolutely anything, couldn't they?
Anything and everything.
Like, someone might share a wild, impossible invention, a machine that translates cat thoughts into English.
Or something incredibly practical.
Or something simple, yeah. An elegant solution for an everyday problem, maybe a new way to organize your digital files that actually works.
Or a concept for a community art project or a new business model.
The range is huge. And the beauty of it, it seems, is that it doesn't matter how polished or conventional or ready the idea is at that stage.
Not at all. That initial spark, that willingness just to put something out there, even if it feels incomplete or maybe a bit strange or half-baked,
yeah,
that's absolutely crucial for everything that follows.
It's like throwing that first pebble into a still pond, like you said. Not necessarily to measure the size of the splash, but just to observe the ripple spreading out.
Exactly. That first ripple sets everything else in motion. It collectively shifts the mindset in the room from, say, passive observation or critique towards active contribution and generative thinking.
So it primes the pump for creativity right from the start.
Precisely. And from a psychological standpoint, that icebreaker is incredibly impactful because it immediately activates what psychologists call divergent thinking.
Divergent thinking, meaning?
Meaning thinking broadly, generating multiple possibilities, exploring many different potential answers or ideas, rather than converging on a single best one right away. Instead of evaluating, participants are immediately primed to generate, and that's a key tenet of that unmooring of the mind we discussed.
Ah, okay. So it shifts the mental gear.
It forces your brain to shift gears, yes.
Yeah.
Away from its default analytical mode, or maybe its self-critical mode. You can't just sit back and passively observe. You have to actively engage your imagination, even if it's just for that fleeting moment of sharing.
That initial share, then, is like the very first, maybe subtle step in the collective unmooring.
It is. It's about letting go, just for a moment, of preconceived notions of what's acceptable or good enough and perfect.
Yeah.
It's just allowing an idea to surface, however raw it might feel.
And what's really striking is how this step inherently embodies that principle we keep coming back to, embracing imperfection or non-traditional thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. Think about typical professional or academic settings. How often do people self-censor? They hold back an idea if it's not fully formed, right? Or if it feels a bit out there.
All the time. Fear of looking foolish or unprofessional.
Exactly. Fear of judgment, fear of ridicule. But in an icebreaker like this, designed this way, there's explicitly no judgment. The goal isn't to evaluate the idea's feasibility or its brilliance at that point. The goal is simply for it to be shared, to exist in the space.
That creates psychological safety, right? That concept you mentioned.
Precisely. Amy Edmondson's work on psychological safety is so relevant here. This icebreaker immediately starts building an environment where even a quirky or half-formed thought isn't just tolerated, it's welcomed. It subtly signals to everyone in the room, it's okay to be different here. It's okay for your idea not to be fully formed yet. In fact, we encourage you to share those nascent thoughts.
That permission must be incredibly liberating for people.
It is. That unspoken agreement, or sometimes even explicitly stated agreement, to accept vulnerability and initial imperfection is absolutely vital for the deeper, more complex creative work that needs to happen later. It's really the antithesis of trying to create a perfectly curated environment from the start. It's about embracing the nascent, the unpolished, the unexpected right from the get-go.
That distinction between just sharing versus evaluating at that early stage feels incredibly powerful. It really does set a completely different stage for what follows. Which leads us very smoothly, actually, into phase 2, the exploration phase, unearthing collective meaning.
Right. Moving from individual sparks towards shared understanding.
Exactly. This is where things start to get really meaty, isn't it? Moving beyond just getting ideas out there to actually finding some shared ground, some common threads, and it seems to have 2 key components that build on each other.
That's right, a logical progression.
First, there's a focused brainstorming session, but it's centered around a really fundamental question. What does creativity mean to you?
Defining the core concept itself.
Oh, yeah. And I find this approach so powerful because it deliberately starts with individual definitions. We all use the word creativity all the time in our daily lives, in our work.
But often assume we mean the same thing.
Exactly. But our understanding of it can be incredibly diverse, can it? Think about it. An artist might see it primarily as self-expression. An engineer might view it as innovative problem solving. A scientist might think about hypothesis generation. A strategist might define it as finding novel approaches to market challenges.
Or a writer might think of narrative construction, a musician of improvisation. The list goes on.
Totally. So, starting with that personal foundation, allowing everyone to ground their thinking in their own experience and perspective rather than trying to immediately conform to some preset external definition that feels really smart.
It honors the diversity in the room from the outset.
It recognizes the rich, multifaceted nature of creativity itself. It's not just one thing.
No, it's a spectrum.
Right. So that's the first part, gathering those individual definitions. Then, from those individual insights, the process moves into group discussions specifically designed to identify themes and ideas.
This is where the synthesis begins.
Yeah, this is where the magic of collective synthesis, as you called it, really starts to take shape. Participants begin to see common threads emerging from what might have initially seemed like totally disparate personal definitions.
Finding the overlaps, the
Resonances,
Right.
and maybe noticing unexpected connections between different ideas or gaining entirely new perspectives that just wouldn't have come out if everyone had just, submitted their definition in isolation.
It's the interaction that sparks new insight.
Right. And the goal here isn't about finding one single definition of creativity that everyone must agree on, is it?
No, definitely not. That would be counterproductive, actually.
It's more about understanding the spectrum of what creativity means to this particular group in this context and identifying the underlying patterns, the shared values, the resonant concepts. What stands out to you about this approach? Starting with the personal before trying to find the collective, how does that initial individual reflection really fuel the later collective alignment?
Well, the significance here is profound, I think, precisely because starting with those individual definitions of creativity genuinely helps to foster creativity within the group itself. It does this by aligning those diverse perspectives, but in a very organic, bottom-up fashion, rather than imposing something from the top down.
So it builds understanding from the ground up.
Exactly. When you ask everyone, what does creativity mean to you? You immediately unearth this rich, diverse tapestry of understanding, just like you were describing. Someone steeped in cognitive science might talk about novel neural pathways firing.
Right. Very mechanistic.
While a musician might describe it as the feeling of improvising a melody in the moment. A business leader might focus on market disruption or innovative processes. A social activist might see it as finding new ways to organize for change.
All valid, all different lenses.
All valid. And by laying these individual definitions out side by side without judgment, the group collectively gains a much broader, more nuanced, and crucially, a genuinely shared understanding of the concept they're working with. It informs how they approach the entire rest of the experiment.
So it creates a shared language, almost, even if the words are different.
A shared map, perhaps. A collective mapping of the creative landscape that is far more robust and useful than any single imposed definition could ever be.
Okay, that makes sense. And then the process of identifying the shared themes and ideas, how does that organically build towards the collective vision?
It does so by revealing the concepts that resonate most strongly within that specific group. It's not about forcing consensus, as we said, or eliminating the outlier perspectives. Those outliers are often incredibly valuable.
Right, they might hold the key to real novelty.
They often do. Instead, it's about finding the common ground, seeing the patterns, noticing the emerging concepts that seem to bubble up from the collective consciousness of the group. What ideas keep reappearing? What values seem to be shared? What tensions or paradoxes emerge that are interesting?
So it's like panning for gold in the stream of ideas.
Good analogy. And this connects directly back to that idea of resisting the perfectly curated environments. This exploration phase actively embraces the raw, unfiltered ideas that emerge about creativity itself. It allows them to surface before any heavy refinement or judgment kicks in.
It's okay for it to be messy at this stage.
It needs to be messy at this stage. That's the necessary disruption required for profound novelty. The inherent messiness of all those diverse individual perspectives isn't something to be tidied up immediately. It's the primary source material. It should be cellulated and explored. It's really in this phase that those in-between moments of discussion, debate, maybe even friendly disagreement become the truly fertile ground for forging new connections and shared meanings.
And thinking about our listeners, who often come from such varied technical and creative backgrounds, this approach seems particularly powerful.
Hugely powerful. Imagine, as you hinted, a room with a seasoned visual designer who thinks in images and spatial relationships, an engineer who thinks systemically in terms of inputs and outputs, a philosopher who thinks abstractly about underlying principles, a marketing specialist who's constantly thinking about audience perception and resonance.
All coming at creativity from different angles.
Radically different angles, potentially. Each would bring a unique, maybe even seemingly conflicting lens to that question: what does creativity mean? Now, in a standard corporate meeting or academic seminar, those perspectives might clash or simply remain in their silos. People might not even understand each other's starting points.
Yeah, they might talk past each other.
Exactly. But here, in this exploration phase, that diversity isn't just encouraged, it's actively facilitated. The process is designed to help bridge those gaps, to translate between those different conceptual languages. And the result is a much richer, more holistic, more three-dimensional understanding of creativity within that group.
It sets the stage, then, for innovation that inherently breaks boundaries.
Precisely. Because the shared understanding itself has been built by synthesizing those diverse viewpoints right from the start. It naturally leads towards solutions and ideas that are less likely to be confined within a single discipline or perspective. It's proof again that true insight often emerges from those unexpected intersections, from bringing different worlds together.
Okay, so we've broken the ice, created psychological safety, and then deeply explored what creativity even means to the group, mapping out that diverse terrain and finding common themes. We have our source material. Now it feels like it's time to start building something with it.
Exactly. Time to move from understanding to creation.
Which brings us to phase 3, collaboration workshop from concepts to shared realities. This sounds like where the rubber truly meets the road, where those identified themes and emergent ideas start to transform from being abstract concepts into something more tangible, something that starts to feel, well, real.
Yes, this is the active co-creation phase. Heavy emphasis on co-creation.
So how does it work? It seems we transition into focused breakout groups here.
That's right. Smaller groups, typically organized around specific themes or challenge areas that emerge during the exploration phase.
Okay, and their primary task is to develop specific concepts based on those themes.
Exactly. This isn't just theory anymore, it's about rolling up your sleeves and starting to build, conceptually at least.
Yeah.
For instance, if a key theme that emerged was, say, enhancing intergenerational connection through technology,
Okay, interesting.
a breakout group might be tasked with conceptualizing a novel app, or a community program, or maybe even a physical product designed to address that specific challenge, drawing on the group's shared understanding of creativity.
So they're actively creating maybe sketching, writing, articulating, perhaps even rough prototyping of ideas.
All of the above. Whatever methods help them translate the abstract theme into a concrete concept.
Yeah.
Very hands-on, very generative. But then, crucially, comes the next step within this phase. These groups share ideas and receive feedback.
Feedback. Always important.
Critical. But the way feedback is given and received here is key. This isn't about harsh critique or competitive judgment or one group trying to win.
Not a pitching competition.
No, absolutely not. It's explicitly framed as a constructive, iterative process. The feedback is structured, often using specific protocols to strengthen the ideas through multiple viewpoints, to gently poke holes, not to destroy the idea, but to reveal opportunities for making it stronger, more resilient, more impactful.
Like finding the weak spots so you can reinforce them.
Precisely. And this interactive, supportive nature fosters that powerful sense of shared ownership we keep mentioning. You're not just developing your group's idea in isolation. You're actively contributing to refining other groups' concepts, and they're contributing to yours. It becomes a collective endeavor, making the final concepts truly shared property.
That sounds like a very healthy, productive way to handle feedback on early stage ideas.
It is. And what's deeply insightful here, I think, is how this phase directly supports that second objective we talked about, build in community through this active co-creation.
How so?
Well, when you put individuals into a small breakout group, give them a shared challenge, and ask them to actively build something together, grappling with ambiguity, making decisions, iterating the bonds between them, form incredibly quickly and deeply.
Shared experience, shared struggle almost.
Exactly. It's the shared experience of collective problem solving, of moving together from an abstract idea towards a more concrete concept. It's not just talking about ideas anymore, it's creating something tangible with others, often under a bit of time pressure, which really fosters a strong sense of shared purpose and eventually shared accomplishment.
Like building something together physically, but with ideas.
Very much so. That shared struggle and shared success are incredibly powerful community builders, much more effective than just, say, listening to a presentation together. It's like a team working intensely to solve a complex puzzle. You come out the other side feeling much more connected.
Okay, so it builds community through shared action. What about the feedback loop itself? You mentioned the power of imperfection earlier. How does that play out here?
This is where it truly shines. Because let's be honest, initial ideas, especially novel ones, are rarely, if ever, perfect. They're often messy, incomplete, maybe a bit contradictory.
Right, first drafts are usually rough.
Exactly. Now, in many conventional environments, think corporate boardrooms or academic critiques, an unpolished, half-formed idea might be immediately dismissed, shot down, or worse, maybe even ridiculed. That'll never work. That's impractical. We tried that before.
Yeah, the antibodies kicking fast.
They do. But in the Imaginify collaboration workshop, those initial unpolished concepts are specifically viewed differently. They're seen as valuable raw material, as starting points destined to be refined and strengthened through collective input.
So imperfection is the expectation, not a flaw.
It's the starting point. The feedback isn't focused on identifying flaws in order to reject the idea. It's focused on identifying opportunities to enhance it, to pivot slightly, to expand on a promising aspect, to clarify the core value.
Constructive, not destructive.
Entirely constructive. And this environment actively encourages risk-taking and experimentation. Participants feel safer putting forward a slightly out there or incomplete idea because they know that support and refinement are built right into the process. They understand their initial attempts, however imperfect they might feel, will be met with a collaborative spirit aimed at improvement, not judgment.
That freedom must unlock a lot more creativity.
It really does. It powerfully reinforces the idea that true novelty, genuine breakthrough solutions often emerge from precisely this messy, iterative, collaborative process, not from isolated, perfectly polished efforts conceived in a vacuum. It's in the give and take, the constructive friction, the slight disruptions caused by another person's perspective adding to yours, the embrace of those in-between moments of creative tension during the feedback. That's where the truly unique, unexpected, emergent solutions often arise. It's a living testament to the idea that imperfection isn't an obstacle to innovation. It's often a necessary ingredient.
Wow. Okay, so the workshop becomes this kind of crucible, doesn't it? Forging stronger, more resilient, more collective ideas through shared effort and the deliberate embrace of that initial imperfection.
A crucible is a great word for it. Intense, transformative, and producing something stronger.
And all that collaborative effort, all that intense refinement, it all builds towards the next stage, right? Phase 4, final presentation, manifesting the collective vision. This sounds like the moment of truth, the culmination of the entire journey.
It is indeed a pivotal moment. The harvest, if you will.
After all the initial sharing, the deep exploration of meaning, the intense collaboration and iteration in the workshops, now each breakout group gets to present their collective vision.
A refined concept.
A refined concept, yes.
Yeah.
And that must be a powerful moment in itself, just seeing what each group has developed. It gives a voice, maybe even a physical manifestation if they've created prototypes or visuals, to every contributing perspective within that group. It shows how all those individual sparks we started with have genuinely coalesced into these shared, unified flames.
You literally see the collective imagination made tangible.
Exactly, but it doesn't just stop there with the presentations themselves, does it?
Yeah, that's only part of it.
After the presentations, there's a vital and, I imagine, deeply engaging discussion on how these visions can be realized.
Yes, moving from concept to potential reality.
This feels absolutely key because it stresses that critical move from an abstract concept, however brilliant, towards thinking about its practical application or its future potential. It's not just about creating something cool and innovative within the protected bubble of the workshop.
Although that's valuable too.
Of course, but this discussion pushes beyond that. It gets the group thinking collectively now. Okay, this is fascinating. What could this actually do in the real world? How could this idea live and grow and maybe impact others beyond this room?
It bridges the gap between imagination and action.
Right. It pushes the collective imagination beyond the workshop itself, steering it towards tangible impact, towards the future life of these ideas. It's really where the rubber meets the road, potentially transforming creative thought into concrete action, or at least a plan for action.
And the significance of the collective vision being presented in this phase as the output cannot be overstated. This is where you tangibly witness the outcome of the entire Imaginify process. It directly connects back to that third foundational goal we outlined, developing a collective vision.
You see the result.
You see the result. It's no longer just a shared abstract idea floating around. It's a shared reality, at least in conceptual form, articulated, refined, and now ready to be discussed for its real-world implications and possibilities. This moment is the living embodiment of the Redefine Imaginify Framework in action. It showcases concretely how embracing that initial disruption, nurturing diverse inputs, and collaborating through imperfection leads to a coherent, novel, and potentially powerful output.
It proves the process works.
It does. And this raises a profoundly important question for us and for you listening to consider. What is the true power of such a shared vision? How can it actually reshape collective thought, culture, or understanding?
That's a big question.
It is. When a group of diverse individuals comes together, goes through this process, and manages to articulate a shared creative output, something genuinely new that didn't exist before they started. That output has the potential to influence far beyond just the participants themselves. If shared more widely, it could potentially reach and resonate with a much broader audience.
Like planting a seed in the collective consciousness.
Exactly. Think of it like a powerful new story, or a compelling new metaphor, or an innovative solution entering the collective conversation. It can inspire people. It can challenge existing assumptions. It might even fundamentally alter perspectives on a particular issue.
Small groups can generate big ripples.
They absolutely can. And that discussion on realization that follows the presentations is crucial because it encourages thinking beyond the immediate output. It prompts reflection on potential impact, on scalability, on ethical considerations, on future possibilities. This phase inherently demonstrates how even those initially imperfect or unconventional ideas, the ones that might have been dismissed elsewhere, can, through this kind of structured collaboration and supportive environment, coalesce into something remarkably powerful, coherent, and potentially world-changing.
It's really proof, isn't it, that embracing the non-traditional isn't some kind of limitation or compromise, but it can actually be a direct pathway to true, impactful innovation.
That's the core message, I believe. It reframes difference and imperfection as assets.
Okay, so the visions are presented, their potential impact discussed. Yeah, that feels like a natural peak. But like any good journey, especially one as creatively intense as Imaginify clearly is, there has to be a thoughtful landing, right? A moment to consolidate the learning, catch your breath, and think about what comes next.
Absolutely. Integration is key.
Which brings us to the final phase, phase 5. Wrap up in next steps, sustaining the creative momentum. This sounds like it's all about ensuring continuity, making sure that the energy generated, the breakthroughs achieved, the insights gained, that they don't just dissipate into thin air once the workshop officially concludes.
Exactly. Avoiding the workshop hangover where great ideas die on Monday morning.
Yes, the workshop hangover. So how does this phase combat that? First, it seems there's a dedicated time for reflection on the process and outcomes.
Yes, a structured debrief.
This is where the group collectively asks those important questions. What did we actually learn through this whole experience? What surprised us the most? What felt uncomfortable perhaps during the process? And how did we manage to push through that discomfort to find new ways of thinking or collaborating?
Looking back to understand the journey.
It feels like a chance for everyone to really internalize the journey, not just the outputs. To recognize their own growth, maybe, and to consciously connect the dots between the abstract principles of the Redefine Imaginify framework we've been discussing and their own lived experience within the workshop.
Making the implicit explicit.
Right. It's about making those aha moments really stick, making the learning conscious and transferable. And then, crucially, there's also a focus on playing for future collaboration and implementation.
Looking forward, how does the momentum continue?
Exactly. How do these brilliant collective visions move from being exciting concepts presented in the workshop to potentially becoming reality, or at least inspiring further collaborative work? This ensures it isn't just treated as a one-off event, but is meticulously designed to be a springboard, a launch pad for ongoing creativity and impact.
And the importance of both that reflection piece and the future planning for achieving sustained creativity and continued community building really cannot be overstated.
Why is that reflection so critical?
Well, the reflection phase connects directly to an idea we often touch upon here. The importance of gaining knowledge quickly but thoroughly. It's not enough to simply do something creative or innovative. You need dedicated time to process what you've done, what you've learned, how you felt.
Metacognition, almost. Thinking about the thinking.
Precisely. This allows participants to truly internalize those aha moments, to understand why certain ideas surfaced when they did, or how the specific collaborative process, particularly the intentional unmooring and the deliberate embracing of imperfection, led to unforeseen connections or breakthroughs. It solidifies the learning, embedding it more deeply into their cognitive framework, allowing them to carry these insights and new skills beyond the workshop into their broader lives and work.
So it makes the learning portable.
Exactly. And then that planning for future collaboration and implementation is what ensures the collective vision doesn't just exist as an exciting artifact documented in a report that sits on a shelf.
Right, avoiding the filed and forgotten trap.
Yes. It actively pushes the ideas out of the conceptual realm and into the realm of potential real-world impact. This aligns perfectly with the application aspect of knowledge that we value so much. Knowledge isn't just for knowing, it's for doing. It reinforces the long-term goal of the whole Redefine Imaginify framework. Not just generating novelty for its own sake, but ensuring its meaningful, responsible, and lasting application in the world.
So it's about translating that initial creative disruption nurtured through the process into tangible, enduring value.
Exactly. Allowing the collective ideas to continue to evolve, to influence others, maybe even to be implemented and impact people's lives beyond the workshop walls. It's about planting seeds, as you said earlier, that have the potential to continue to grow, adapt, and bear fruit long after the initial session ends.
It's clear that every single stage of this Imaginify experiment is so deliberately designed for deep impact, from the first icebreaker to the final future planning. Now, holding this entire structure up, underpinning the whole experience, are what we call the foundational pillars, the participation guidelines.
Ah, yes, the rules of the road. Or perhaps the rules of the creative ecosystem.
Nicely put. These sound like the bedrock, the operating principles that really make everything else, the unmooring, the embracing of imperfection, the vulnerable sharing possible, allowing it all to flourish safely.
They create the container.
Exactly. And they seem quite straightforward on the surface, but I suspect their impact on the creative environment is profound, perhaps often underestimated.
I think that's true. They seem simple, but they ample complexity.
So let's list them again clearly for everyone. First, be open and respectful of all ideas. Seems basic, right? But how often does that really happen?
Less often than we'd hope, perhaps.
Second, encourage and support fellow participants. Again, this isn't just about being polite or avoiding conflict. It sounds like an active stance, actively building each other up.
Yes, championing others' contributions.
And finally, perhaps the most challenging one, embrace the joy of creativity without judgment. Letting go of that inner critic and the fear of the external one.
That's the big one. Taming the judge.
Okay, so these three guidelines. Be open and respectful, encourage and support, embrace joy without judgment. How do you think these guidelines, which might seem almost trivially basic to some, fundamentally change the creative environment compared to, say, a traditional corporate brainstorming session or even an academic critique, where ideas are often immediately evaluated, challenged, or even shut down? What specific psychological and social dynamics do they unlock that make Imaginify work?
Well, the deeper insight here is precisely why these seemingly simple guidelines are so absolutely essential. They are the key ingredient for fostering an environment where those unconventional, initially imperfect ideas can actually flourish without the participants feeling that immediate fear of dismissal or critique.
They lower the perceived risk of sharing.
Dramatically. Think about it. In so many settings, as we've discussed, people instinctively self-censor. They have a nascent thought, maybe a bit unusual, maybe not fully formed, and they hesitate. They hold back because they fear judgment or ridicule, or simply being seen as not strategic or unprofessional.
That's a dumb idea, fear.
Exactly. These explicit guidelines, reinforced constantly by the facilitator and ideally by the participants themselves, create profound psychological safety. They explicitly state, it is safe to be vulnerable with your ideas here. It is safe to experiment. It is safe to be wrong initially.
Permission to be imperfect, again.
Explicit permission.
Yeah.
And this allows those truly novel, often initially awkward or imperfect ideas to actually surface, to be spoken out loud, to be explored, rather than being smothered by self-censorship before they even get a chance to breathe. It's the fundamental difference between a mind operating under a state of caution and threat and a mind operating under a state of permission and exploration.
That's a huge difference in cognitive mode.
Huge. And the guidelines about respect and encouragement, they actively cultivate an atmosphere where different ideas aren't just tolerated. They are actively sought out and seen as valuable assets, not liabilities. That quirky perspective, that unconventional approach, the idea that maybe doesn't quite fit the immediate problem but opens up a new avenue, these are often the very seeds of profound novelty. If your environment constantly squashes those early imperfect sprouts because they look different, you'll never get the mature, potentially groundbreaking idea later on.
You prune the potential breakthroughs.
You do. And finally, that call to embrace creativity without judgment directly challenges the deep-seated fear of being unmoored or looking foolish. It tells participants it's not only okay, but it's desirable to step off the well-worn path, to let their minds drift into those seemingly unproductive or tangential spaces, because that's very often exactly where true disruption and breakthrough innovation actually happen.
It's like giving permission for daydreaming, but with purpose.
In a way, yes. It's a liberation from both the internal critic and the fear of the external critic. It allows for genuine cognitive freedom. And it's this combination, the psychological safety created by respect and support, combined with a deliberate permission for imperfection and non-judgment, that enables Imaginify to bypass so many common creative blocks and unlock genuinely fresh, collective thinking. It's the fertile soil in which the seeds planted earlier can actually grow.
That makes perfect sense. It's not just about the phases and the structure. It's about cultivating this underlying ecosystem where ideas are actively nurtured, not immediately pruned or judged. And the supportive environment built on these guidelines really fuels something else we've touched upon previously: the magnetic pull of novelty and the power of imperfection and resonance.
Yes, how these unique outputs actually gain traction.
Right. We've talked before about how humans, maybe instinctively, maybe neurologically, are often drawn to novelty. We notice the thing that breaks the pattern. It's the unexpected, the slightly off-kilter, the thing that doesn't quite fit the established mold. That's often what grabs our attention in a sea of sameness.
Our brains are novelty detectors, in a sense.
Exactly. And this kind of content, especially the kind that might emerge from a genuine, collective, somewhat uninhibited exploration like Imaginify, it often feels fundamentally different, doesn't it? It feels fresh, it feels authentic, it feels, well, different.
Less manufactured, more human.
Yes. It doesn't feel overly polished or market-tested into blandness or mass-produced. And because of that raw authenticity, that hint of the unexpected or the imperfect, it can deeply engage our innate human curiosity. It makes us lean in and ask, wait, what is that? Why is it like that? Where did that unusual idea come from?
It piques interest naturally.
It does. And that curiosity is a powerful magnet in our increasingly homogeneous world, where so much feels predictable. Finding something genuinely novel and authentic can feel like discovering a quirky, handmade gem amidst a sea of mass-produced plastic goods. It has inherent value because of its uniqueness.
And what's deeply insightful here, I think, is to really try and dive into the mechanics of this unforeseen power of resonance and autonomy that these novel, collectively generated ideas can achieve.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, think about how truly novel and authentic ideas spread, especially ones born from this kind of collective, uninhibited thought process. They often spread via word of mouth organically, in the way that heavily polished, corporately produced, top-down content struggles to replicate.
Because it feels like a discovery people want to share.
Exactly. It cuts through the constant digital noise, the advertising clutter, precisely by being different, not in spite of it. People talk about it, they share it online, they discuss it, they maybe even build upon it or remixes it because it's distinct. It sparks that curiosity we talked about. And it often resonates on a deeper, perhaps emotional level, because it feels human, original, uninhibited. It feels like a genuine discovery, not like manufactured marketing.
So its imperfection or uniqueness is actually its strength in cutting through.
Often, yes. And then there's that critical concept of autonomy that comes into play. Once these collective creations, whether it's a shared vision statement, a novel concept for a product, a piece of collaborative art, whatever it is, once they're released out into the world, they can take on a life of their own.
They escape the laboratory.
They absolutely do. They can be shared, interpreted, reshared, recontextualized by countless others in ways their original creators might never have envisioned or even intended.
That sounds both exciting and maybe a little scary.
It's both. This is the Redefine Imaginify framework in action again, empowering these creations to resonate deeply, precisely because they lean into their unique, often unconventional nature. They're not tightly constrained by the original intent or the original controlled environment of the workshop. They become part of a larger, ongoing conversation, evolving and influencing culture or thought in ways that can go far beyond what the initial group imagined.
So the idea gets unmoored itself.
Beautifully put. The idea itself becomes unmoored from its specific origins. And this organic spread and evolution is really a testament to their authentic novelty and their profound capacity for resonance. It's further proof that the most impactful creations often emerge from the unexpected, the collaborative, the imperfect.
But, and this feels like a really important but, with this inherent power, this power of creating and unleashing novelty, especially something that can achieve such unforeseen resonance and gain this kind of autonomy, comes a truly significant responsibility, doesn't it?
A profound responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a question that seems unavoidable once you recognize this potential power. And it's one we, as potentially conscious architects of these collective visions, simply must earnestly ask ourselves, what kind of novelty is actually ethically responsible to create and to unleash?
That question hangs heavy, doesn't it?
It really does, because this isn't just some abstract academic exercise. It feels like a vital, practical consideration in our hyper-connected, rapidly evolving world.
It has real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our creations, particularly those that are genuinely novel and manage to achieve that deep resonance we talked about, they truly can reshape collective thought, culture, maybe even understanding or behavior. We see examples every single day in the digital landscape, don't we?
Constantly.
A single powerful idea, a new meme that perfectly captures prevailing sentiment, for good or ill, a piece of art that redefines a genre or sparks a movement, or even a philosophical concept shared online that suddenly gains incredible traction. These things can dramatically alter perspectives, sometimes for the better, but sometimes with deeply problematic or unforeseen consequences.
The ripple effects can be enormous and unpredictable.
Exactly. That's an immense power inherent in creation, especially novel creation. And it demands our full, thoughtful, ethical attention. How do we, or how can we even try to, ensure that what we collaboratively bring into the world serves primarily to uplift, connect, foster understanding, rather than inadvertently contributing to division, polarization, or misinformation?
That is the crucial question, and it really forces us to explore the layers of ethical consideration required for anyone acting as a conscious architect of collective visions. We absolutely must strive to be incredibly intentional, not just about the creative process itself, but about the inputs we use and the shared visions we ultimately choose to amplify and put out into the world.
Intentionality is key.
It's paramount. It's not enough to simply create something novel because we can. We have to critically evaluate what we're creating, or perhaps even more importantly, try to anticipate what effect it might realistically have once it's released from our control, once it's out there in the wild, autonomous ecosystem of information.
This isn't about censorship, though, is it? It's about foresight.
Exactly. It's not about pre-censoring creativity. It's about embedding rigorous, empathetic foresight into the creative process itself. It means constantly asking ourselves throughout the development, is this collective creation likely to foster connection, empathy, and nuance? Or could it even inadvertently contribute to division, misunderstanding, stereotyping, or the spread of misinformation?
Can you give a hypothetical example, maybe, without taking sides on any specific issue, of course?
Sure. Let's imagine a group collaboratively develops a really powerful, novel artistic concept or campaign designed to highlight a specific social injustice they all care about. That's a worthy goal.
Okay.
But if the resulting imagery or messaging isn't carefully considered for how it might be interpreted by different audiences or in different cultural contexts outside their own, it could potentially be misinterpreted in a way that causes unintended harm, or offends a group it wasn't meant to, or even gets appropriated and used by others to promote an opposing agenda.
Ah, the appropriation risk.
Right. Or consider a novel theoretical idea about, say, economic models or social structures developed in a workshop. If that idea is presented to the world without sufficient context, careful framing, or acknowledgement of potential downsides or complexities, it could easily be oversimplified, distorted, taken out of context, and used by others to justify extreme political viewpoints, even if that was completely antithetical to the original creator's intentions.
So good intentions aren't enough.
Good intentions are necessary, but absolutely not sufficient. This requires a proactive approach to considering potential impact, rather than just reacting after harm has been done. It fundamentally involves embracing the difficult task of stewardship of vision.
Stewardship of vision, what does that entail?
It means grappling honestly with the unsettling possibility that our unique, resonant creations might be reinterpreted, twisted, distorted, or maybe even deliberately weaponized once they gain that autonomous traction online or in the wider culture. Once something is out there, resonating, taking on a life of its own through shares, commentary, word of mouth, its meaning can mutate in totally unforeseen ways, far beyond the initial control or intent of its creators.
We lose control of the narrative.
Completely. And recognizing that possibility from the outset requires a deep sense of responsibility. It pushes us, or should push us, to ask not just the exciting question, can we create this novel thing, but also the much harder, more critical questions. Should we create this? Given its potential interpretations and impacts, is this the novelty the world needs right now? And if we do proceed, how can we best prepare it, frame it, and introduce it to maximize its potential for good and minimize its potential for harm, knowing we won't have full control over its journey?
Those are sobering questions.
They are. And they lead to a really crucial question for you, listening right now. How do you think we as individuals and communities can best ensure the ethical stewardship of our collective creations in this rapidly evolving, often unpredictable digital landscape? There are no easy answers, but it's a question that demands our continuous thought and dialogue long after the initial creative spark has been ignited.
What a profound and vital challenge to leave us pondering. Truly, it adds a whole new layer, a whole new dimension of responsibility to the act of creation itself. But let's just take a moment before we wrap up to also affirm the incredible positive power that this collaborative journey holds, despite the responsibilities. The potential is huge.
Absolutely. The potential for positive impact is immense.
So, as an affirmation for this whole creative process, for the Imaginify journey or any collaborative creation you might be involved in, maybe remember this. Together, we are a tapestry of ideas, woven with creativity and collaboration. Each of our voices adds color and depth to the vision we create.
That's beautiful. Captures the essence perfectly.
Hold on to that feeling, that sense of collective potential as you consider your own creative contributions, whether that's in a formal setting like this or just in your daily interactions and ideas. Your thread matters.
Every thread contributes to the whole.
Exactly. And now, just for a quick moment of creative thought, a little brain teaser to spark your mind and maybe unmoor it just a tiny bit from analytical thinking, here's a riddle for you.
Okay, I'm ready. I think I am.
I have keys, but open no locks. I have space, but no room. You can enter, but you can't go outside. What am I?
Keys, no locks. Space, no room. Enter, can't go outside. What do you think? Is it a keyboard?
You got it. A keyboard, a classic riddle, but it makes you think differently about common words, doesn't it? Keys, space, enter.
It does indeed. A nice little cognitive nudge.
Okay, bringing it all back together then. This whole exploration of the Imaginify experiment, it really drives home that it's so much more than just another creative workshop or brainstorming technique.
Oh, much more. It's a living, breathing embodiment of the core principles of our Redefine Imaginify framework.
Right, it showcases in practice the profound power that comes from deliberately embracing discomfort, from welcoming imperfection as a starting point, and from actively leveraging those unexpected connections that arise when diverse minds collaborate openly, all in the service of creating true, meaningful novelty.
It really proves that by actively collaborating, by intentionally nurturing diverse ideas without premature judgment, and by having the courage to unmoor our minds from the safe and conventional paths, we can indeed create something genuinely extraordinary, something with the potential to truly reshape perspectives and maybe even make a real difference.
Absolutely. The entire journey of Imaginify demonstrates just how powerful a collective imagination can be when it's given the right conditions, the right structure, and crucially, the right supportive culture to truly flourish.
The container matters as much as the content.
Perfectly said. And for everyone listening, remember that affirmation. Your voice matters, your unique perspective, your background, your way of thinking. It adds an invaluable thread to that tapestry of shared ideas. And together, we really can create something extraordinary.
The potential is always there when we connect authentically.
So please join us next time as we continue to explore the limitless possibilities that arise when we collaborate, challenge assumptions, and dare to redefine what's possible in creativity and innovation.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. And please make sure you subscribe and click that notification button so you don't miss out on more deep dives into this innovative framework and other surprising explorations into the origins and application of knowledge.
Keep exploring.
Until then, keep creating, keep imagining, keep questioning, and keep diving